Hello, everyone. Happy Sunday. Welcome back to the UpSet podcast. I'm happy to bring my favorite crew on with me this evening. What's up, everybody?
Hello,
Hey,
family.
happy Sunday.
Happy
Happy
Sunday.
Palm Sunday.
Yes,
Yes.
Palm Sunday.
Yes, that's right.
Yes, that's
Palm
right.
Sunday. And hello to our viewers and our listeners. We're so happy that you tuned in. Don't forget to share. We're going to have a great conversation today, and we want to make sure as many people hear this as possible. So go ahead and share. All right, guys, another week, another exciting things happening in our world around us. So what are some of the highlights on your timeline and news feed?
Well, I think everybody is looking at the Supreme Court and saluting the ascension of a Black woman to the ranks of Supreme Court
Absolutely.
justice.
That's
Mhm.
right.
That's all I want to talk about. Amen.
So great on so many layers. For real.
Herstory.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Herstory. And
Like that.
I love to see the graphic now that has her picture over there in the corner
Yeah.
and showing even the demographics of the Supreme Court now, because now that she's in place, it's no longer a white male dominated court, Supreme Court judges. So that's awesome to see it
And
to be
it's-
history breaking on so many levels.
And especially against all the resistance, I just kept saying, thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. That the enemy did not prevail.
That's right. That's right.
Now they're trying to get the same ones that did that is trying to get the Black vote for the next time around. Come on. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Let me stay on.
As
Gotta
soon
tell
as
the
we get a
truth.
win, they're already plotting how they can make us lose again. So
Yeah.
that's how it works out. So, but we're happy for her, celebrating that definitely. Anything else exciting going on?
Yeah, I'm still just amazed. Shouldn't be, because we've seen this before with war in this country.
Yeah.
We are one of the most warring, if not the most warring country on earth.
Yep.
And the thing that I took issue with is, the president of Ukraine is asking for more help, but military help, weapons, and they're just flowing in. And it's just unfortunate that there isn't enough dialogue about peace and diplomacy.
Yeah.
There's cursory discussion, but nothing really hardcore. And it's unfortunate. We can come up with tons of money and tons of destructive weaponry for war, but we just can't seem to get that peace thing on track. And then at the same time, mainstream media just pretty much forgot about Yemen and some of the other disasters around the world. We have to, millions of people and millions of children on the brink of total starvation over there. Literally, it's imminent. It's imminent, not weeks or months. I mean, we're talking within a matter of days.
Have
I think that is much a headline as what's happening in Ukraine. And not to take from the tragedy there, because it broke my heart to see bodies lying in the street. I mean, that's terrible.
Sure right.
Yeah.
Sure right.
Yeah.
And then hitting the train station.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that's something. To be honest with you, I now see the coming of Jesus more attractive than I've ever seen it before in my life. And just to actually see it with our eyes now, instead of witnessing the aftermath of it. You know what I mean? We always see the aftermath, but to see it actually happen, the media has shown us what's actually happening. And we ought to be able to look for the wrapping up of all of this, to tell you the truth.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you, I've been praying that God just sends Putin out in the wilderness eating grass. He did it one time before with Nebuchadnezzar, because that guy, I mean, the only thing that's going to change him is a farewell.
Wow.
Wow. Yep.
Yeah, well.
Wow.
And President Biden said, I didn't call for a regime change. Marlena did.
I just said,
right.
absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
right.
Dude loves that power, and it's an evilness.
You don't have any black SUVs parked out in front of your house. Do you?
I just said he needs a farewell. I was speaking biblically. He can go out in the wilderness and eat grass till he gets it right.
Nick, I see you dying. Nick is dying to say it. Just go ahead, Nick.
I have not to say.
All right, guys. Well, we're going to keep it moving tonight. We are covering a very important topic, one that was suggested to us by one of you, our viewers, one of our listeners. As you guys know, last month we were tackling Women's History Month, and we were dealing with a lot of issues that affected women. And we had a suggestion specifically for Black women and the health disparities that take place on a daily basis, even now in our society. And when we saw that suggestion and started to read up on some of the statistics, we knew that this was a topic that the UpSet podcast had to cover because we were upset once we started reading and realizing what so many women, particularly women of color, go through just simply trying to be well. I mean, can we just be well? Is that too much to ask? We were looking at so many of the startling statistics regarding this. The maternal mortality and injury rates are higher for Black females, regardless of your education or income level. Black women experience disparities in infertility rates, stigmatization and fertility care, health conditions that disproportionately impact Black women, such as uterine fibroids, receive very little government research funding. And we are also underrepresented in clinical trials that require consent and are overrepresented in studies that do not. And we are also significantly underrepresented in key biomedical research data sets, including genomic data repositories and related analyses. So it's like, do you see us? Do you hear us? Do we exist? And we want to take some time to talk about some of these disparities, but not just talk about them, but also strategize or look at some ways that we can attack this. But we didn't want to tackle this by ourselves. So we have brought on a medical professional with us. We're going to bring her on at this time. Let's welcome Dr. Houston. Hi, Dr. Melissa.
Hi, Dr. Houston.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome to the UpSet podcast. Of course, some of you may be familiar with Dr. Houston. She does work with Allegheny East Conference and our emergency response team. Very instrumental in helping us make practical decisions as it related to COVID when it came on the scene and we were like, oh no, what is this, a pandemic? So we've appreciated her expertise on so many levels. But Dr. Houston, go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience. Tell them a little bit about you and your background.
Sure. Well, I am so happy to be here today. This is a really exciting podcast. I've had an opportunity to listen before, and I know how lively the conversation gets. So thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of it. I'm a pediatrician. I'm a board-certified pediatrician and adolescent medicine specialist. I've spent most of my career in public health, tackling some of the issues that we're talking about today, such as infant mortality, teen pregnancy, vaccination rates, and things of that nature. So happy to be here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Glad that we can talk about this with someone who has done some of the research, seen some of the things that we are experiencing. So first of all, I wanted to start there. You heard me read off these statistics and we're seeing these things, these articles. Are these just arbitrary things, or do you really see this as a major issue that is very prevalent in the healthcare system right now as it relates to Black women not receiving adequate or equal care?
So it is an issue. There have been multiple studies done about it, and there's also been anecdotal stories that have been given about that. I think one of the ones that you could remember is from Shalon Irving. She had a BA in sociology, 2 master's degrees, a dual subject PhD, and she still died from maternal complications. She was working at the CDC studying these very issues of health disparity, and she still died from maternal complications. We know that it's true that the chronic stress that Black people in general, but Black women experience actually shortens life. It actually shortens the chromosomes called the telomeres. And it's this chronic stress, this chronic elevated level of cortisol that is killing us. I'm smiling because I'm saying that it's true and not a lot of attention is being paid to this.
Right. Yeah. And that was one of the reasons why we really wanted to tackle this, because it's something that maybe women who've experienced it know about, but not necessarily the broad audience. Maybe even some Black women who've never been in that situation where they've experienced it don't even realize this is happening to their fellow sisters, and even our men. They're not aware of what we may experience when we go to seek medical care, or the things that may happen to us, or when we share what's happening with our bodies and not always being received. So we kind of want to break down some of these disparities because they happen on different levels, as you heard me share. Let's start off by talking about the simple racial bias. So a woman of color comes in for care, and it can range from different things. Say they come in with a stomach ache, or they're have some level of pain, and they want assistance. We've seen in cases where sometimes they're told what their experience is downplayed. Oh, it's just this. Oh, it's just that. Come back, take this, and come back later. Why do you think that that's such a prevalent attitude towards women of color? Where is this coming from?
So there actually is a term for that that I discovered. It's called medical gaslighting. And I'm sure that everyone has heard gaslighting before.
Wow.
But medical gaslighting, it refers to when people are saying that what you're experiencing or what you're describing is not really happening, and it's not true. And I think that there are a plethora of reasons why this happens. One is, until recently, there wasn't a lot of there's not a lot of representation of Black women healthcare providers, but in general, there weren't a lot of women healthcare providers in the past. That's slowly changing now. And we know that our genetics, meaning Black people, differ from those of our other counterparts. So sometimes we may present differently. We know that women, I'll give you an example for heart attack. Women present much differently than men. But what we're taught in medical school is the classic male presentation of a heart attack. So if you don't fit those criteria, then it's easy to say that, oh, no, that's not what you're experiencing.
Wow.
That's tough. And Charles, tell us, we were talking about the case of Dr. Moore. Many of us within this last year, at least, have seen on social media the doctor who recorded herself. Can you share that with our audience, the experience of Dr. Moore, who had COVID, and she recorded a video of herself in the hospital?
Yeah, Dr. Susan Moore was hospitalized for COVID-19, and she recorded on her cell phone and posted it, I believe, on Facebook, sharing her experience in the hospital and how she was not receiving the correct type of treatment. As herself being a physician, she knew what really needed to be done in early treatment while she was there, and they wouldn't give her the treatment, and she felt that her her care overall was very biased, and that's why she felt the need to report this on social media. I think what was startling was that when she reported it as a physician. Here is a physician in a hospital, Black physician, who is not getting adequate care. Who would know better than another physician? But she did not get the adequate care, and subsequently they sent her home, even when she didn't want to go home. But they sent her home. Her condition got worse, and she ended up being readmitted in another hospital, which, as the journalists reported, and even members of her family reported, her care was more compassionate in the other hospital. So just in balance, we want to say that this is not happening everywhere. But in her situation, I think what was startling was the fact that here is a physician who knows, unfortunately, she was a Black female physician. And it seems to me, now it may be reaching, but whoever was giving her care felt like it didn't matter if you were a physician. You could be a rocket scientist. The problem they had, whoever those caregivers were, which, by the way, according to the journalists, they haven't been able to comment on this situation. It didn't matter if she was a rocket scientist. What mattered was that she was a Black female, and they had a predisposition about her.
That's so sad. So Dr. Houston, I mean, I know we kind of, I think as we talk about each of these, we're going to also talk about the solutions that go along with it. So when Black women experience this, when you sense that something, the way you're being treated may be racially motivated, how, what should we do? I mean, sometimes in particular areas I was reading, there are not a lot of doctors to choose from. You're kind of, I don't want to say stuck, but you kind of have to go where you can get the care. What should we do when we feel like we're experiencing this type of bias?
I know she has her she's
You're muted.
Place matters, right? So we know that, especially from the Unnatural Causes documentary that was done a few years ago. Place really matters. So it depends on where you live, how resourced you are personally, and then how your clinics and institutions are resourced, right? We know that all things aren't created equal. So there are things that can be done. If you feel uncomfortable or you feel that something's wrong, you need to advocate for yourself. And that is easier for some than others because, depending on how many resources you have a million other things on your mind, and your health might be the last thing. But, I believe that most people have access to the internet at some level. But to do the research, that is what your counterparts do. They do their research before they come in to see a healthcare provider. And so I would encourage everyone to do their research so that they know what they're talking about. I mean, you're not going to know all the medical terms, nor do you have to. But you just know that something is not right and advocate for yourself.
I'll push back just a little bit, Tasha, on the idea of racially motivated, because it sounds like at times that a doctor will say, Black woman, I'm going to treat her badly because she's a Black woman. I want to lean in a different direction, and that is to say that at times there is a predisposition to perceive that Black women are stronger or more resilient. I take you back, Dr. Houston, to the case of Henrietta Lacks. A biological case where a Black woman presents with cancer, but her cells are demonstratively stronger than the cells of other people. Does that allow doctors to perceive at times that Black women have greater endurance and greater resilience and therefore may not need the same level of urgent care?
So what I would say is that a lot of bias is unconscious. There might be some people who are overtly racist, but I wouldn't say that that's the case for most people. I would say that the bias just is deeper than that.
Yeah.
You are familiar with what you're familiar with. You're more comfortable with people who are like you. I mean, research bears this out. That's just human nature, right? And so I don't think I'm going to say the majority of my colleagues, I would hope, do not come in and say, well, I'm going to treat you like this because of how you look.
Right.
But maybe they have been taught that, a certain race of people don't feel pain that much, or this type of illness is not as painful as it might present, or it might be another way that their decision making is borne out just because of what they've either been taught to believe or what they've just internalized to believe. And I know that we have a long way to go, but I know that in medical programs they are definitely starting to teach about this and starting to have people question their biases and to try to be more objective when they are treating patients.
Okay, a follow-up, if I can, rather quickly, and that is, there's something, it's a big fancy term, the apotheosis of beneficial pain. And that is, if I am hurting, then something good is happening to me. Can this be a part of our religious infrastructure? And that is, I'm supposed to suffer. Therefore, I will tolerate more pain and suffering because, after all, Jesus suffered. And if he suffered, so should I.
Nick, man, the chat room is about to blow up on you, but I'm gonna go
He
ahead.
suffered, so should I.
Wow.
I'm going to let our religious leaders take that one because it seems like it's more in their realm than in the medical.
I was asking it for a friend.
But let me just. I'm sorry, Nick. You were really waiting on an answer on your "we should suffer" because.
No, I'm saying, is there a religious predisposition at times that, and Carrie just made mention of it, where suffering is a good thing. Therefore, I will allow myself a greater level of suffering. For example, I know a lot of people who are members of the church who will say they want me to take this medicine, but I don't need to take no medicine. I can handle this. I can endure this. Because we actually feel that suffering is good for us.
Or we have a fear.
That's right. I was thinking more of the fear.
I have never felt that way.
Me either.
If I'm in pain, I'm in pain, and everybody in the house and the neighbors
will know it.
And the folk down the street, they just stick their head out the door and said, "Oh, Brother Chuck must be in pain because I can hear him all the way down here."
I'm not trying to. I'm
telling you, it's true.
I'm not trying to be crass, and I hear you, Nick, on that. I'm not trying to be crass. Growing up, when we slept over cousins' house or whoever house, family house, you had to bring clean underwear because if something should happen,
that's the only time you had clean underwear.
Only time, Nick. That's the only time, brother. The point to it is that our parents always said wear clean underwear because if something should happen and you go to the hospital,
that's right.
No, really. I mean,
I'm laughing because that was universal.
It's like universal, right? And the reason why is because and my mother, who taught that, who told us that all the time, who's an emergency room nurse, I have a feeling that even though I know we're talking about our Black women, as soon as you walk in the door, there's a judgment call by the way that you're either dressed, by the way how you came in, which car kicked you out of the you know what I mean, out of who kicked you out of the car and left you there. I'm reading more about the income area. What is it that you have on? The way that you speak when you enter. It's basically how they treat you. Now, I'm not saying that it's fair or that is something fair, but when I look back at the past, even coming from slavery, Black women were supposed to endure this, and I'm not saying it. I know the chat room would get me, but it's almost this thing that women, if they can handle childbirth, if they could be out in the fields work until 9 months and pop a baby out, then they can take the pain.
But I mean, just because we're capable doesn't mean we want to.
No, I agree. I'm not even
is available. I know me. I'm taking it. I don't get pain just for the sake of being pain. I don't get any. Personally, I don't get anything from it.
No gratification. That's right.
No, I think those are just silly. As far as I'm concerned,
I don't know.
A woman is a woman.
Chuck, I changed the subject a long time ago off of Nick and this pain thing.
I
really went.
A very intelligent woman by the name of Carrie Lawrence Williams said that there is martyr complex, and
there is.
There is that.
No, I believe
somebody later tonight and say flesh and blood did not reveal this to you all, but that's okay.
No, I believe that. The sad thing is that, even in our think about our Loma Lindas then, or our and the reason why I called out the name is because it has more of a, or even our Catholic hospitals, so I do understand that where people feel that where there's pain, there's healing. I've heard of that before. This is not the first time I've heard that, and there's some biblical background to that. Even though I'm not Marlena and Nick to be able to tell you that, I can tell you that it is. But the reason why I switched it up and I thought it was important is because even when we travel, I dress a certain. Oh, here we go with the dressing.
And your shoes. Oh my God.
No. But I dress a certain way because if the police stop me, I don't want them to stop me in a hoodie. I don't want them to stop me in this, that, and the other. And that's the reason why, if you take your child, or if you go to the hospital, to me, be the best that you can be to present yourself in a way that that will bypass their stereotypical attitudes towards it, because it's true. My mother is a nurse. She's more like when she walks into the hospital, the doctors don't want to hear from her. That's just the bottom line. They don't want to hear from her because she's speaking a different language than the rest who would walk in and say, I have a bellyache or I'm hurting. What do we tell them? Go take Gas X and go back home. Oh, really? They do say that, right? So, and some people, some give them meds that they're allergic to. You know how many of our people die from allergies, from medicines? So I think that there should be education. Everybody can't hit the internet, Doc Houston, because sometimes we hit the internet based on what we want to hear or what we want to we want it to be. So I'm just saying, you know, we need to be more educated on walking into some of these emergency rooms, our doctors.
Yeah.
So yes, I should have caveated my statement by saying from a reputable source. Anything that you want on the internet.
No.
But what I would say about pain, in all honesty, is that it's a blessing because there are conditions where people can't feel pain and they get into a lot of trouble.
Nick.
Because they get a lot of infections and because they don't know. And, you know, that's sort of what happens in diabetes. Why?
Yeah.
She just helped out Nick, man. I don't like that.
I didn't mean to. I'm just trying
Dr. Houston, you don't have to apologize for helping out Nick.
No, you don't. No.
I'm just trying to say that God gave us
great is your reward in heaven
as a warning that something is wrong.
Right.
Yes.
That's
a warning. That's
we need to investigate. You know,
that's amazing.
Whatever is wrong.
That's amazing.
Dr. Houston, I have a question. In a way to deal with this, say on friend and family level, I've always advocated for people when they, especially Black women, when they go in and have a hospital stay, to have a friend or a family member, where possible, to be with that patient or their relative. I've heard many cases where, you know, relatives or friends were allowed to be with the patient during, you know, like not even far and beyond visiting hours,
makes all the difference.
to be with them, to ask the questions. I know, I mean, one time my oldest son had to go to the hospital. He had a very bad stomach ache, and he called me. I met him at the hospital, and just the fact of a relative being there to ask the questions that he's not able to ask, especially when he was put under, you know, and I had an interest as a parent, you know, what's the intravenous? What is that? Why are you giving it to him? What can we expect from it? What is your name? Right. You know, I want to know your name. I want to know your boss's name. And I know that might be an overreach, but my point is, Dr. Houston, do you recommend in any case, especially a severe case, to have a patient to have a close friend or a family member monitoring their care while in the hospital?
So I would definitely recommend that they have someone with them. I'm not sure I would say monitoring their care, but I would say that it's a high stress situation. And when you're in a high stress situation, there are things that you don't remember that you wanted to ask, or things that may have been a concern for you that you are not going to be able to ask just because you're stressed. So it's always helpful to have someone with you who could be a little calmer to be able to ask those sort of questions as to what is this medicine? What does it do? How often are we supposed to take it? If it doesn't work by a certain time, what are we supposed to do? You know, all of these questions. Yes, it's definitely helpful to have someone.
Are medical personnel, do they get irritated or annoyed when people are asking a lot of questions?
I can't speak for everyone. I could say that I don't get irritated. You know, I try to take the time to explain. And so if there's questions that remain, it either means that I didn't explain clearly or my instructions weren't understood, and that I have to try again to, you know, to make sure that we're all on this, you know, all on the same page as to what the recommendations are.
Dr. Houston, you've never put the hand on the hip and given the neck roll and said,
"Look." Yes.
Oh, with my adolescents all the time.
Okay.
Like we were coming from the same place. I can't see her saying, "I told you already. You need to leave the room." No.
You know, care is typically directly proportionate to the estimation of value. And if it's a thoroughbred horse, it gets better care than some plow horse in the field. Does the lack of solid care for Black women have anything to do with the devaluation of Black women from a social construct?
So that is a loaded question. What I can say
We don't
is
have any
that
sociologists. You have to answer this one.
what I can say is that research has shown that Black parents, Black patients, some studies have shown that Black patients receive higher quality care from Black healthcare providers.
Gotcha.
Right.
So that's documented. But, I'm hoping that things are going to get better because there's not that many Black healthcare providers to be able to provide care for all of Black patients. So, I think it's education. And as I mentioned before, things are changing, probably just not on as fast scale as we would like it to be. And, Pastor T, as you know, as I said, everyone has unconscious biases. We all do. We all have unconscious biases about people. And so, yes, do I think unconscious bias plays a role into how Black women or any other type of woman or man is treated? Yes, it depends on the treating and the treating physicians or healthcare providers' biases. But I think with training and education, as we are becoming more aware that we do have unconscious biases and how we can make sure that our care is being given in the most objective and clinically relevant manner, will help change the situation.
So I wanted.
Dr. Houston,
Oh,
I'm sorry.
Sorry. Just I wanted to. Sorry, Charles. Just somebody had asked a question that was kind of similar to what we were saying, what we were just talking about the bias. So because we know that this may exist, does it make sense for, a Black woman or just go in and ask, may I see a Black physician, or is there anyone? Does it make sense for us to do that, or is that offensive?
Pastor Grissom said he's going to go in there and say, and my doctor's name better be Shaniqua.
No, I don't know. It really depends on your place, right? If you have choice and you have resources to research your carers before you arrive, then it's easier to select somebody, right? But if you're in an emergency situation, the reality is you have who's there, right?
Right.
I mean,
Yeah,
that's the reality. And so depending on where you live and what resources you have, that really would depend on who's available in an emergency situation.
Yeah.
Dr. Houston, I have a. Oh, I'm sorry, Chuck.
No,
Were you
go
waiting
ahead.
in line? All right.
I'm waiting in line. I'm behind you.
So this is what I was thinking when I was looking at the research about the increased mortality rate of Black women being 3 to 4 times greater than white women with the childbearing, process. And I wondered if for us Blacks, I know you were stating before that it was, increased stress with us. So it's so much more that happens. But is there Black on Black research with that, being that mortality rate in childbirth is so much greater? Are there any studies out there, at least among the African American community?
I'm sorry, can you rephrase your question? Because I want to make sure I'm understanding what you're asking.
So in the research, they were saying that it wasn't enough research with, Black women, one increased mortality rate during childbirth, right? 3 to 4 times than white women. And even with fibroid tumors, all those other things. So my question was, even if there's not research in other populations, how about within our own population? Are there any researchers within African Americans, to help us amongst our own?
Okay, so I think that has a lot of points to that question, Pastor Marlene. So I will try to take them as I heard them. So it is a fact. The research has shown that the mortality rate of women, of Black women, the maternal mortality rate, regardless of your education level or income status, is what is bringing down the mortality rate, maternal mortality rate in the U.S. In fact, Black women have a maternal mortality rate like a woman in Uzbekistan or something like that. Okay. And, Dr. Michael Liu from HRSA, who is the Maternal Child Health Bureau, in an interview, he said that, the chronic stress that Black women achieve, even if you're in college, always with the microaggressions, having to deal with everything versus, even if you are living in poverty and have to struggle with your day to day. It's all of this so that you are older like by 7.5 years than your counterpart, just because of the chronic stress that you are experiencing. So that means that something that may not be an issue for a counterpart would be an issue for you, just because you are so much more advanced in chromosomal age than your counterparts. That people would need to pay more attention to, that they wouldn't necessarily, because that's not, the general population of what they're taking, that this is not what they would have to look for, like say in a 25-year-old woman, if that makes sense. So that's the first part of your question. The second part of your question, I think you asked, are there a lot of Black researchers doing research amongst our own populations?
Right.
I would say not enough. We are getting there, but there are not a lot of Black researchers. And I think one of the articles that we read shows that the funding priorities for a lot of diseases that affect mainly Black women are not high on the list. So my suggestion would be, and I know that there's a lot of baggage regarding research in this country. I don't need to say Tuskegee for anyone else to nod their head and understand what I'm talking about. But it does do us a disservice when we do not participate in clinical trials. We need more people so that there's more diversity in clinical trials, so that if there are differences in how, Black women respond to different therapies, they would be seen. But right now, they're just not as diverse as they need to be.
How do we get involved with that? How do we participate? I mean, I know I wouldn't say that I'm opposed to them. I just don't know how to be involved with them. How do we find out about these clinical trials?
So it's going to take some digging. If your healthcare provider doesn't bring it up to you, so that was sort of what I started off with, trying to do your research. If you have the means, or asking someone
from the internet. Go ahead.
From a reputable source.
Right.
Clinicaltrials.gov. I'll put it out there. It lists all the clinical trials that are registered in the United States that are happening, right?
Okay.
That you can bring up if you think that, if you've been diagnosed with a problem and, you feel that conventional treatment is not working, or you just want to participate because you understand that diversity in clinical trials is necessary. That's a place to go to start to get information about what trials are happening in the United States.
I know our time is limited. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Chuck.
Yes, please let Chuck.
Well, I just want to ask this really quick, and it may take more time, but I felt like I had to get this question out. From a medical industrial complex point of view, are there systemic markers that suggest that, or even research that suggests that hospitals that are located in urban areas or low-income areas or poor people, let's just say it straight, that don't have insurance, that come to the hospital with a serious illness, are there markers that suggest that they get less care because of the fact they don't have adequate insurance?
Say it, Dr.
The pause.
Say it.
Y'all know the pause. This is the pause. The pause is, I could speculate, but I'm not sure that that's helpful. What I can say is that hospitals, like your community hospitals, are under-resourced, right? Compared to high academic centers that are bringing in billions of dollars of research that can help fund other areas of the hospital. So your community hospitals don't have those sorts of resources. So I wouldn't make a blanket statement to say that they don't get as quality care because of their insurance status. I probably would say that they might not have access to things that people who go to a different hospital may have access to.
Yeah.
Well, the time has come for us to be true to our word with Dr. Houston.
Yes, I forgot to share at the beginning that Dr. Houston will have to leave us.
We have a problem.
Houston, we have a problem, right?
And she was so young.
But we do want to thank you because you added a perspective that obviously we could not bring. And things that I didn't even realize. I mean, thinking about the impact Black women deal with can somehow affect their fertility. These are things that we don't even really think about. So thank you for sharing.
Thank
It
you
was
very
such a
much.
pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
You survived the upset.
I did. I survived. I'm still
We need to get
smiling.
t-shirts for our guests.
Amazing.
Thank you so much
Thank you
for
so
coming,
much.
Don.
Thank you,
All
Dr.
right.
Houston.
Bye-bye.
Pleasure to meet you.
All right, guys, it's on you now. What you got?
Oh no!
So when she was
I
talking
was-
about
Oh,
how
go
the
ahead.
body chromosomically is
Right.
aged, I thought about the book
Right.
title, The Body Keeps Score, right?
Mm.
So
Mhm.
like
Mm.
trauma that we deal with affects our body. And
Mhm.
we really don't think about how much trauma affects our lives and think about the impact of the pandemic.
Yeah.
And okay.
I knew
And
I heard her
how
crying when.
how stressed we have been. Think about that. Like,
Mhm.
how many years is COVID taking off
Right.
the lives of our people? 3 years.
Yeah.
So it's
Sure.
real.
Easily.
Sure.
And what I don't know if we were talking about this in the green room, how more black women used to be married before, and now they're single for a long time. So you
Yeah,
have the
yeah.
stress of running a household, working. And so I see why, stress is so much a factor, with childbearing and all those other things. We have more heart attacks because you have the whole load of carrying the family by yourself.
It's just
Right.
gas.
Uh,
So,
Yeah, I really wanted to deep dive. I just got the question in before she had to leave, but I really wanted to deep dive into the medical industrial complex and how it works. When you go to the emergency room or you're brought in, one of the first things that they ask you
Insurance
is about
cards.
your medical insurance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I've always been a skeptic, and I've always been suspicious that if I walk in and I say I don't have any medical insurance, I don't know if there's a code put on my chart.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This guy
You're
doesn't
not
have any
supposed to
medical,
Minimum.
refuse
so
care.
let's just
Right.
give him the
Mhm.
economy care.
Right. Right.
By the way, in our prep,
said economy.
Latasha,
Mhm.
I hope you have it. The Hippocratic Code.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
Or oath.
Uh-huh.
Let me bring that up.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
in a perfect world, you'd think anyone that comes in that is ill to a hospital, they would get premium care, period, because they are a human being, and that they're not filtered by level of insurance. And the good doctor just said that, some hospitals, they have budgets, some meet their budgets and some don't. And so does that mean that a patient needing extraordinary care is put in that cycle of, okay, this patient's going to cost us a lot more than patient X because they don't have any insurance. We get nothing back. That concerns me. That just really concerns me.
Yeah, but there may be some other factors too, Chuck, to, substandard healthcare too, like, if they're short on staff, and you don't have enough people to be attentive to the patients, and so that's also a reason, why
Yeah.
people feel they're not getting, adequate care and things like that. So there's a lot of factors with that. But, I think it was stated, that when people are lower on the social economic scale, they don't get, what they really need. But I when I was reading one of those articles, when it came to women's health, it was like social economic status and education didn't even matter sometimes, and they still received substandard
Oh,
care.
I'm sure. Oh, yeah, I'm sure that happens. But I think maybe there may have been studies on this, because let's face it, these are for-profit institutions.
Yeah. When it boils down to it, that's for sure.
And
Well,
Now,
even,
some of them aren't, though.
and
Yeah, some of
even,
them are. Yeah, I mean,
even if
Some
it's
of them
not,
aren't
even
for
if it's
profit.
not, it's the importance of the person that's coming in.
Yes, yes.
Back in the day, they used to call their pastor when they got to the emergency room, and to know that there's an official there in the room or someone there, it makes a doctor or it makes a nurse or a practitioner or whoever recognize that there's someone big, or there's someone there that's being cared about. I thought we just touched it just a little bit. Same with nursing homes, etc. If someone shows up and or an advocate that's there, you don't even have to ask a question. It's just that you have people behind you in some way or another. And I think that's where the important piece comes, that no matter where you are, whether you walk into a county hospital, and that's where I was coming from, or the Loma Lindas, or wherever you walk in that what scares me the most is the unconscious, what did she say?
Unconscious bias.
Unconscious bias. That scares me because it could be a black doctor that's doing
That's
it to a
right.
black
True
that's
that.
doing to
Yeah.
a black
Yeah.
so is it just color, or is it the way you look when you come in?
And that advocacy piece was so difficult during COVID. I mean, because they weren't
Mhm.
allowing people
Oh,
in.
no,
And
that's
so it
right.
was like scary to just drop off a loved one, or just know a loved one was in there.
Yeah.
You could
Yeah.
communicate with them. No one was really calling you. Although, you know, some hospitals tried to make those accommodations. But that's when it really became
It was very frightening.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was very frightening because
I mean, it is, you know, and I'm going to reassert a point that I leaned in the direction of earlier, and that is the issue of internalized devaluation.
Mm.
You know, if you go into a hospital and you have been trained to believe that you are not valued as much, or that pain is something that is acceptable,
Mm.
and look, folks, we don't want to admit it, but it is true. In our communities where Black women are given short shrift and told you can't be leaders,
Mm.
and basically told that your pain and your ambitions are not equal to the rest of ours. When you go to a hospital, that same sense of devaluation carries over. And
Mhm.
the doctor says, well, you know, it's probably nothing. And you say, yeah, it probably isn't. When you're still hurting, because you've been
Mhm.
trained that what you think, what you feel is not valued. And this is something that happens in our community. And we start with our little girls in grade school. Ain't nothing wrong with
Mhm.
you. Go sit down. And they
Mhm.
learn how not to listen to their own voice. I'm beating that drum some
no,
more.
it's true. So much so, Tally, that
Oh, it's
we
true
don't
now,
even
huh?
make it.
Doctor's going, now it's true, huh?
No, I'm not doing that modern stuff. I'm just saying that devaluation is true. So much so that our community tends to not even go to get medical care. We'll deal with it at
Yeah.
home until somebody realizes it's so dire and rushes to the emergency room.
Tell Charlotte I ain't moving from that
I
president.
hear you. But listen,
But look,
we even learned that pain is weakness leaving the body. It's on the
Yes.
street that we've heard that before. I don't know if it's biblical, Nick, but I've heard that
Oh,
before.
it's not biblical, no.
No. But I have heard that before. That if you
Yeah.
have pain, then that pain that you have to endure it in order for it to leave. And I think if a person is thinking that, not when I say a person, if a practitioner is seeing something like, you know what, we haven't even touched mental health yet. I'm coming to this where, let's take it away from a stomach ache or something of that nature, where somebody walks in and says, "Hey, I'm dizzy, I'm not feeling well," or whatever the case may be, and we say to them, "Black people, you have schizophrenia, or you bipolar, or whatever," without even thinking about it, while the others are just depressed. Do you understand what I'm saying? So
Mhm.
it's really and truly it's the first sight on when they look at you, they're automatically gonna diagnose you before you walk through the door.
Or even with
Hmm.
Black women with fibroids, we know that, you know, most Black women, the statistics show that a lot of Black women will have fibroids. It's almost like commonplace. It's like, so when
Right.
you walk in, you're a Black woman, you're complaining, oh, it's probably fibroids. And it's almost like, okay, that's what it is. Like, you know, you get those. It's like, no, but it's giving me discomfort. Or it's giving me this. And it's almost like, you know, now that we can confirm that that's what it is, that's all you get. It's like, what are my options? Like, you know, you're going to help me out here. And it's like,
They give you options.
yeah, but, and then
They'll
maybe
do
the extreme, you know,
right,
hysterectomy.
right.
Yeah.
Oh, a myomectomy. They'll try cutting it out first, but they come back, and then it's the hysterectomy. But I did want to touch something that Sister Charlotte wrote about poor
About Nick?
staffing.
About
No,
Nick?
not that one,
Oh,
about poor staffing. And Sister Charlotte, now, you know, it's not just in the lower income communities, you know,
that's right.
lack of health care is like all over, universal. And I must say, guys, I was so tempted last week. I got my license to practice physical therapy in Pennsylvania, like in mid March, right? And so
Yeah.
a company contacted me. Listen. They said, we'll pay you $86 an hour to work at the Einstein Jefferson Hospital.
Hold on, let me call
Man,
the
did you know
president.
I wanted to say, Jesus, can I take a little leave
What are you
of
talking about? Let me call the president. President, what's Pete Palmer's number?
$86 an hour because they're short on staff. I was like, oh my goodness. So I just wanted to say that's a big hospital right here in Norristown, but
She thought about it,
that's
Nick.
all over.
I
Oh,
would tell her to pray about it, but I know she already prayed for it. So,
I did not take it, Nick. I'm here to service the people.
mm, mm,
Oh,
But yeah,
look at
that's
misunderstood. She
shortness
said,
of
"Forgive me, but I don't see
This
the
dichotomy.
dichotomy because I work for the insurance and the complaints are balanced." Wow.
I don't know what that means.
I think she's okay. Well, I guess I don't want to.
Complaints coming from white and black women.
Right,
Is that what she's meaning?
or let us know,
Explain,
Miz.
Miss.
Yeah, explain, Miz. Which one were you talking about?
If we don't understand, misunderstood.
I know that and not to be beating this medical industrial complex thing, but in some countries, more socialized countries where there is universal health care, if you are born in a particular country and you're a citizen, you automatically get medical care.
Oh, sure.
Whether you have insurance
Canada,
or not.
England,
Canada,
right.
Germany,
Sweden. Sure, yeah.
Right. And
Canada. I think Canada.
there has been some research that suggests that there are other factors that affect when you have socialized medicine, that the pay scales are different for the medical personnel. And that many times the research suggests that when medical personnel, specifically doctors and specialists, are paid the same as others, there isn't this rush to do unnecessary surgeries. There isn't this rush to do unnecessary treatment. There isn't this rush to keep a patient, hanging out there, kicking the can down the road with their treatment because of financial benefits to medical personnel. And I think that has a factor that should be factored in because the industrial complex, I think, is the blame for a lot of misdiagnosis and also the blame for individuals being ignored, or if they don't have the right kind of insurance. All of those are factors, I think, that affect, and more specifically to Black women. I mean, there are a lot of situations that put Black women in that lane of not being able to financially survive serious medical treatment in our hospital system.
My goodness.
And I think that we need to focus on that. Universal health care, I'm a proponent of it. I think someone should not worry about, there are individuals that don't go to the hospital for treatment because they know they have no money.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They don't
So,
Yeah, I've been quiet this episode because I have my little princess. But when we were expecting her, I was intentional about finding the best hospital in New Jersey because I know that New Jersey is at the bottom of the rank of all 50 states, almost at the bottom for maternal issues and healthcare. And so I found, Princeton Hospital, great hospital. And even there, we had some issues throughout our process because my wife developed something called pubic symphysis. Basically, she was temporarily paralyzed. And instead of sending her to physical therapy immediately, Dr. Marlena, they sent her home for 6 weeks. I went on FMLA, I went on leave. And when she got to the physical therapist at Princeton Hospital, the physical therapist, who just so happens to be SDA and Black, she was pissed. She was heated because she said they were sending people here with less issues, with less pain, with less serious issues. And they sent you home instead of sending you here to me directly. And she was like, you need to get some lawyers. You need to lawyer up because this is wrong.
Wow.
Called the supervisor. She was furious because she said, how can you send her home and allow other people to come see me who had less serious issues? And so it's real. and it happens. And oftentimes people don't have the energy or the resources to fight it, but it's real.
Or the
Did
time.
you know your wife was a doctor? I let people know I'm a healthcare professional, so you don't flim-flam me. Did your wife ever say she was a doctor?
Yeah, she let him know I'm an optometrist, I'm a healthcare professional, but the person who saw her literally said, "We can't see you for another 6 weeks, so you need to go home."
But
meanwhile, they could have just called the physical therapy office, and she would have been at the front of the line, and we didn't know this until later.
GP, what I wanted to add to this, just like we talked about mental health also, is that it's okay.
She's upset.
She's
upset
she's
put
upset.
mommy through that. Yeah.
It's that most of the time, depending on where you are, let's talk about the income areas again, that our advocates don't have the time. They have to work. That's the 9 to 5, right? So the times when you have somebody with you to advocate for you, you don't have that. They don't have time off and FMLA and all of that to be able to do it. If you're working at places that don't offer that, then who's going to advocate for you? And please, let's not talk about the advocates that they set up in the hospital already who have biases already.
Yeah, but that was a bad physician call. Like, did they even suggest home care and outpatient until you could get her in the rehab? You see,
no,
if
just
she's going
wait
home-
6 weeks until we can see you.
Oh my, yeah.
Marlena,
You
going
had
into
home
PT.
care options,
Yes, right.
Yeah.
Really?
In PT. Go ahead, Marlena. She's in PT. Remember, you're a pastor, okay? Don't
Yes.
talk this PT talk right now.
Yes, but I had to look out for my girl because
go get that $86 an hour.
Just a couple of months, Jesus.
Yeah, listen. Don't worry about it. Just tithe it. You won't get in any problems. Just go ahead and tithe it.
So, guys, I know, we talked a lot about this, and I do want us to end by talking about some of the solutions. What can we do? I mean, GP did his research. He found the best hospital, and this, still ended up with an unfortunate experience. So what? Oh, I just saw the chat. And I was thinking about this, more of us being present in the field so that we can speak to the things that we see, because like you said, GP, as soon as she heard what had happened, she called her supervisor. She's a person in a position where she can say, this is not right. And I feel like we need a little bit more of that. Like when we see these things happening, bringing it to the attention of people who can monitor it. I know Dr. Houston mentioned this, but training, I mean, biases don't go away overnight because someone says you may have a racial bias. No, these are things that have to be ongoing trainings, keeping it before people to realize, that I may have it, even black on black, like we said, even black physicians and we may have it ourselves, and we need to check that. Are we treating this patient different than this patient because of how they look, or because they have insurance or they don't have insurance? Like, these are the kinds of things that I think constantly need to be part of, trainings for hospitals and medical professionals. Definitely. I mean, educate. Yes.
What does the oath say? What does the oath say?
Oh, okay. So yeah, I was it's funny. I didn't even realize some of the parts of the oath. I'm going to skip to the part where I think you were there's so many different versions of it, but I'm going to the modern version. Okay. I will respect the hard-won scientific gains of those physicians in whose steps I walk, and gladly share such knowledge as is mine with those who are to follow. I will apply for the benefit of the sick all measures which are required, avoiding those twin traps of overtreatment and therapeutic nihilism. I remember that there is art to medicine as well as science, and that warmth, sympathy, and understanding may outweigh the surgeon's knife or the chemist's drug. Okay.
That's enough right there to tell us that
there's a lot in here.
A whole bunch of folk in violation. Just what you just said.
Mercy.
Yeah, there's a lot that they vow to.
But in balance, and I personally and family members have personally run into some magnificent healthcare providers. Yes. I mean, they're attentive. They call you at home. They check on you.
Yes.
Very, very professional and caring. So I don't want to, I'm going to come off like we're sweeping with a broad brush, but because there are many out there who sacrifice to do their job and to keep that oath. But I think it's important for even, anybody can find that oath and read it. And perhaps if you're in a situation, pull it out and remind your healthcare provider that you have an oath here that you're violating.
Right.
I also want to share, because statistics show that, like, GP, when your wife came out of the hospital, the sooner you get to see your primary care physician, your health increases. And so I would tell everyone, find you a really good primary care physician
True.
who will, vouch for you, who will, send
True.
you to other specialists, if it's something they can't figure out, so that you can be tested, because a good PCP is not going to allow you to just stay home and remain in pain or whatever your diagnosis is. A good doctor is going to fight for you. And so I want to say that as one way that, we can make sure that we're taken care of. I love the advocacy, because you do have to make sure, that all of us healthcare professionals, commit to what we're supposed to do, but also get that good doctor, not just any PCP, but a good doctor that will take time with you, understand your diagnosis, and get you, specialists, if need be.
Yeah. And don't be afraid to, travel. I know we talked about what's available in the area, but sometimes it's worth a 20-minute drive if it means you're going to get better care. I mean, it is your life you're talking about. And don't
second
get
opinions.
stuck. Yeah.
Right?
Don't just stick with one person.
And third opinions and fourth and fifth.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you got to have time, which is
yeah.
So what do we say? Bring this full circle. So what do we say to our Black females that have to get hospital care, whether it be of an emergency or procedure? What is the moral to the story here for them as they approach a situation where they have to get treated at a hospital or by a physician?
Do as much homework as possible.
Yeah, I would say that as well. As when you're sharing a concern and you're not being heard. When someone is brushing your your care, your diagnosis, or kind of telling you to take this and come back, see me in 6 months. When you're kind of being brushed off. Don't stand for that. Continue to ask questions. If that doctor can't help you, find someone else. Don't allow yourself to suffer. None of that martyr complex stuff. Don't allow yourself to suffer because you're taking the opinion of someone that you don't perceive cares about your health. I would say, by all means possible, get the care you need and deserve.
And stay persistent.
Yes.
If your doctor's not listening to you, go to somebody else. Remember, we pay them, especially with our insurance, we pay them. And so if they're not providing the care that you want, go to another one.
Well, in closing, Pat had made mention that his mother said, wear clean underwear. You never know, you might be in a car accident. Let me tell you, if you're in a car and you see a Mack truck coming, your underwear aren't going to be clean by the time the doctor gets to see you anyway.
No.
So
that's right. Don't take no for an answer. Yeah, and I it's true about that. We saw so many cases in our reading where doctors were brushing it off. Oh, that's a muscle sprain. Oh, that's this. Oh, that's that. Just tell them something different each time, to the point where the lady actually went to see someone and found out she had cancer. Cancer that she could have treated much sooner if the doctor had taken her concerns and the things that she was sharing seriously. And so that's why, we really do have to do what it takes to take care of ourselves and find people. And one of the things I like to do is ask other women of color, who's a doctor that you feel has given you good care. I mean, nothing beats a recommendation from someone else who has had a great experience. So don't ask your friends, ask people who they recommend and have had great experiences with.
Does the Allegheny East Conference have a database of medical providers of any sort?
I don't think we do.
We used to. It used to be part of our conference directory. There was a section in our conference directory when it was a printed document.
A binding book.
Right. It was a loose leaf book, and there was a section for medical personnel that were members in our conference. So we did at one time have a database of Seventh-day Adventist doctors in our conference territory.
As the Winans once sang, no, 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 no.
Yeah, you always got to get a song.
Well, that might be a good thing for us to, Natasha, for us to advocate for, to add that to our website.
Yeah, we have it for mental health. So
yeah, and we are working on one for businesses, all of our business owners within the conference, but now we need to also add that medical side to it. And don't forget the clinical trials. We mentioned that, be proactive and participate so that people, more research will be dedicated to what's affecting us, and that we can be factored into some of these things that they're studying. Especially.
Yeah, I have trust issues with that. I'll be the one to get the placebo pill. I'll take this and come back in 2 weeks and tell me how you feel.
But a lot of times it's monitoring it's them giving you close attention. Sometimes it's not even about the medicine, more so than them taking your specific situation and tracking everything that's happening with your body. So
that Tuskegee thing, man, we come back with some stuff that we ain't get there with.
Well, remember what Dr. Houston said. We have to become a part of these tests, and we have to.
Yeah, that's right.
It was nice having her on. She.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Houston. We love having.
So, Pat, I expect you to start taking the birth control pills.
Wow. That's another show for another day.
I'm gonna take it, see what happens.
Oh no. Okay. On that note, once again, we want to thank our viewer who suggested that we tackle this topic. We hope that maybe someone who may not have been aware of some of the challenges that Black women face now can help us advocate towards these things. And we hope that the Black women who are watching will learn to be a little bit more vigilant with their own health care and making sure they get what they deserve. And if you have a topic, we still have some in the queue that are coming along. So if you've already shared a topic with us, trust and believe it's coming up as well. But if maybe this has sparked a new thought in your mind about a topic that we should cover, email us at upset@aecsda.com. And don't forget, one thing about this, we're on YouTube and Facebook and podcast platforms, so you can still share this after we go off. You can still share this with someone who you think may need to hear this discussion. So once again, you know what I was thinking, guys, we need to come up with a name for our regular Upset crew. We're the Upsetters, so who are they? We need to come up with a name for
Upset Nation.
Upset Nation.
I don't know.
We'll think on that. Maybe you guys can bring us some ideas next week. But it's been great. We appreciate your comments and the knowledge that you share in the chat always. And we'll be back with you again next Sunday, 6 p.m.
Yep.
So take care. Bye, guys.
Bye, family.
Oh,
always a pleasure, guys.
Peace.
Peace, everybody.
Bye.